Доброго дня.
Good afternoon, everybody who joined us, and today we're going to talk about love at not first sight, or about our course of pre-marital counseling. My name is Polina, and today at my answers, Mykola will be answering, the senior pastor of Irpin Bible Church, and Pastor Stanislav Gruntskovsky, who's responsible for the family service of Evangelical Christian Baptists. How do we get here, and why did we decide to talk about this? Me and my fiance were in the middle of our course, and when I'm going through this course, I understood that I had a lot of stereotypes, that this course is like an interview to our marriage, and somebody should approve my husband. And I also hear a lot of questions, what about this course? And it seemed to me that there is no understanding what is that course and why do we need it and why is it important, that it is so obliging for us, for the couples who want to have marriage. And I have a question, and if our online audience has a question that will be not talked, you write down your questions in the comments down below, and after our discussion we will look at your questions. So please, Mykola, how did you get the idea of this premarital counseling? In our church, in Irpin Bible Church, from the very beginning, there was a lot of youth, and the number of the youth grew, and the time appeared that time had come to have marriage. And after the couple decided to have marriage, they came to me, and I had a list of questions for them, and if they understand each other, if the fiance knows how to make money and where to live, and parents are not against their marriage, the only thing is left is to choose a date and a pastor who will marry the couple. And after we had an experience that we saw a lot of couples that had difficulties in the marriage, and a lot of them, they had Christian experience, some of them didn't have any, but some of the couples had a lot of problems who showed immaturance. I don't know if it's under the influence of Stanislav or under our collective minds, pastors' minds. We came to the conclusion that it's too late to teach people after. We should prepare couples before marriage, and that way we had an understanding that we need a course for premarital counseling. We found a good book. Here it is. It looks like this. Family Life. Mission published it. There are 8 strong topics, 2 introductory, and we had material. We had understanding that the couple needs premarital counseling, and because of the understanding of responsibility, because sometimes we think that youth have different arguments, different than the one responsibility from God. We had the decision we are not ready to give marriage to the couples who are not ready to go through this course. Person needs to hear deeper God's thought for the marriage, role for God, for husband, for wife, for sexual life, financial life, the whole list of understanding what is marriage. And that's why we have like 10 meetings, and throughout these 10 meetings you should prepare yourself. And since this course exists, I can tell you, we just make more sure that we need this course. And we also offer this course for married couples to have this course after they had marriage. Our couple started family service. I want to tell it because this counseling is a part of family service, so the couples can live in harmony. And we started from the couples. We started with this little nights, evenings that we had, and then we found the crisis. We saw a big crisis in family life, and they resolve in really, really bad way. So we decided that we have 3
Please tell us how we came into development of the course and how this course is different from what is after. Did you have anything before, and have you changed after? I don't remember that we would have a training before with a couple. We just had a wider meeting to discuss their emotional and spiritual attitude, all kinds of readiness that they should have. So that was intended 1, 2, 3 meetings. Before we had the course, we just would have 2, 3 meetings. That's it. So the time now is much longer, but also intensity of those meetings. When you go through this manual, it's like a workbook. It's not a book of text to read, but person has to fill in the answers. They have to write. This course allows them to get to know each other before marriage like they wouldn't know each other otherwise. And pastors provoke them to discuss questions that would allow them to see each other and to understand each other and to talk about topics that a couple in love would not normally discuss. But this openness to each other with supervision of a mature married counselor is a good part of training. So there was something before our course, but we recognize that this training program has experience of thousands of couples that prepared for marriage. This book was prepared by family consultants that have decades of experience of ministry to married couples at the level of premarital counseling. So it's better to take this material based on experience and the hard work of different ministers. This is not the only training. Just recently, there was a translation of Wayne Beck, Preparation to Inspired Marriage. So, if you'd like to take this course, that would be advantage for you. And there are some special elements here, but we prefer the other one. Okay, I shared my stereotypes with you, but what stereotypes you faced in response to this course? Do you mean, do young couples that think about marriage have some bias to premarital counseling? My question is about the logic of this course. I know already that somewhere in the middle of this book there is, I'll open the secret here, there is a chapter on decision. You need to decide. You have to evaluate your decision about engagement. If you want to proceed, well, you need to be blessed in your engagement. But if you understand that this is the wrong person, then you need to properly stop relationship. So you're asking whether this is course for people who are engaged or people who are in love but are still not decided about the big decision. Well, yes. Okay, then we recommend to all young people, and actually we propose to many couples to start with this course before they make engagement, because this is not a course that forces you into marriage, but course that will help you evaluate your attitudes, and then you decide whether you get engaged or not. But many couples that come to us are already engaged. Exactly. There is no prescription of actions, so like you first would need to get engaged and then go through this course. Because for some people, this course helped them understand that that was a hasty decision for them to think about marriage, and they had peaceful departure. How did you prepare to your marriage recently? 25 years is not very recently. Actually, that's a long ago story. In ancient times, 1995, we did not have any trainings. The pastor who married us, he looked at me. I was studying in a seminary, so that I was good, and my wife came from a good family, so they had one meeting, probably, but I don't remember what we discussed. Actually, this is a huge bias. Each of us has experience of our parents' families, but who says it was good experience? And then one family experience contradicts usually the other family experience. So these mixed experiences cause tension. So in fact, friends, it's worth learning. Solomon said long ago, if you are wise, then you keep acquiring knowledge. I was going through seminary course, but it did not have marriage as part of curriculum. So I knew something from the Bible, but this course helps to translate biblical truth into reality of he and she. How Bible truth needs to work in his and her life. Polina, I remember that meeting with pastor that we had, 2 hours, and we talked about many things, how we should and should not decorate the wedding car. And there were many questions of intimate life. So over 2 hours. It's hard to discuss things in quality and all things that should be discussed. I'm thankful to Pastor who gave us that time, but I heard some grains of truth for us, but it takes more time and more meetings, as we understood later. I'll step aside in a moment, for a moment. There, older pastors say that couples used to be stronger without any classes in the past, and now everybody learns, and then they get divorced. And I am telling those pastors, your children get divorced. Your children do not understand the truth of the past generation. Of course, the church relations were closer. There was more fear and respect of older generations. There was more respect, and you understood that if you do sin and you are expelled from the church, then you're outside of the best circle of communication. But times have changed. But even in those times, there were sins, there were betrayals, there were adulteries, there were divorces, but they were kept in secret. So, denying learning now, because in the past they did not learn, is like denying cars today, because people used to ride horses. Because the Bible says pastors need to build up the body of Christ, the church. So we build up a family that builds up a church. because the qualities of our families show the quality of light of Christ in this world. So our task is to make the family prepared. That's direct responsibility of pastors, and 10 meetings could not be enough. Okay, but we are asking why that is important, why you recommend this. In Irpin Bible Church, this course is a necessary condition for you to wed the couple. Why you made that decision? Why is it so important? Practically, every couple meets with serious challenges, at least in 5 relationships. First is relationships with parents. This process of leaving the parents and parents letting children go, because practice shows that they often do not let children go, and children often do not want to leave parents all together. This is a serious area that requires a lot of preparation for young people even before they get married. Next important topic is money. Majority of Ukrainian young people are illiterate in budget making, discipline, and accountability. Next question is roles. Who is responsible for what and how? Then the question of intimate life. This is very intimate side that can hurt or bless. But next is the children. How to raise children. That's another issue for possible conflicts. Paulina, are you driving a car? No, I don't. Okay. If one day you decide to stop walking and you want to get a car and you need to get a license, then it will take 2 months for you to learn every day. It's not just a privilege to drive a car, it's responsibility. And if it takes at least 2 months to learn how to drive a car, then we understand in order to drive a marriage to some success, people need knowledge. So, with love, but categorically we tell young people, this is our care for your future. That's it. Then a practical question. If a young couple wants to get a counselor to go through this course, when do they come to you? From first hello to the training. Where is that moment? Well, first, they need to clearly understand that they are interested to spend time together. And we don't encourage dating because of spring or because of fashion or because of some itch down there. There has to be intentional desire to get married. When these two feel that they want to be close and their meetings move from the phase of I like you to I need to learn about you more, to understanding I could imagine you as my husband in the future or you as my wife in the future. Then at this moment, and when you start asking these questions to each other, then that's the time for the course. Okay, the same thing in different words. If a boy told a girl that he has a feeling towards her and she has mutual feeling, if they can consider themselves as a married couple someday down the road, then, and they have some capital of assurance that they could go into marriage even before getting engaged, that would be good for them to start learning 2, 3, 4 meetings before they even decide whether they move into engagement stage or introduction to the church, or at least to that important section where the pastor that will counsel the couple, will start asking serious questions, so that the person would give honest answers to God and to themselves. I think for me, this would save many couples from wrong relationship in the future. But the earlier the better. If you're already engaged, then you must. A word of warning. We recommend for you to go through this course in your church. We cannot train such a course to every couple in Ukraine. These are the books. This is the course. Tell your pastor. We'll give the names of those books in comments after our broadcast, and start this practice in your church. This is very useful. This is very important for the community. It's important for ministers to care for the young people as they prepare them for Christian marriage. You do it in your own church, fine, okay, with pastor, but does it matter which one? How do you choose this mentor? Polina, we have a lot of democracy here. Every ordained pastor, almost, majority of them, have privilege, joy, and honor to wed. And that means they can prepare couple for marriage. So the couple decides who is closer. Sometimes they would name 3, and then Stanislav and I, we decide who of pastors is less burdened at that moment. And sometimes Stanislav or Mykola would have 2, 3, 4 couples at the same time, and so we advise someone else. But I suspect that somewhere in the future we'll have trained counselors in our church who would not be ordained as pastors, but still will have good marriages of their own, and we would recommend them to be good counselors. That's part of our dream. So you're both counselors, right? Yes. So for you as counselors, what difficulties you face as you train couples, and what gives you joy? Troubles and joys. Well, I'll start with joys. This discovery process, wow process, is very important. When you discover that 2 people get to know each other, that's amazing. But then, in addition to the course, I like to share my experience or other experiences. For many questions that couple brings in, there are many experiences that have already happened. There is nothing new under the sun. That's joy. But trouble, some couples are made of 2 people. Some couples want to look more spiritual than they are, so they write answers but not their answers, or they want to look better than the other person, and that hurts relationship when people do not want to be open, sincere. That hurts. Or when couple is lazy to do homework, that interferes. There are tasks to do at home, important part of the course. Sometimes boys are more lazy in training, but that's just dumb male egoism. They think that they are smart already, and nobody can teach them anything, but it will take a lot of learning to understand how little you know. Yes, my joys and my troubles are very similar. Did you see couples in your mentoring that certain people should not be married or should wait at least? I'm very interested to know what Mykola will say. Very interesting question. I don't remember such a couple. There were couples that I married before they have gone through the course, and I regret not training them first. But for people who have gone through the training, I can express only good emotions, because this 10-week course builds very good foundation. And I have also come into fellowship with them, and I am happy to see them, and I'm honored to know that if they have problems in their marriage, they will come to me because they know me better through this course, and they will ask my help. At least I hope so. I remember such a couple, Polina. Out of 30 maybe stories, I remember 3 where in 2 of those 3 stories I had not enough wisdom or courage to help these people understand that they should better depart from each other in peace. I understand that pastor should be very open and sincere when the pastor sees clear signs of pride, immaturity, either in a boy or in a girl, when they don't want to change. Pastor should be honest in saying that if they remain like that, they should not get married. I remember those 2 stories. I should have told them to give them the decision. And with one couple, I told them, I'm tired. You should just leave each other. You made me tired and you made each other tired. They did not move away from each other. They got married. And I think with every next year of married life, they get better and better. Why? Because they turned out not to be lazy, to change and to learn. So things can be different, yes. Different stories. My father was a pastor, and he shared the story with me. We talked a lot about ministry to each other, and he had this couple where at 3rd meeting he felt something not good, and he asked both of them to write a story that they don't like about each other. The boy wrote 4 points, the girl wrote 23, and when she read it, that she didn't like anything about her boy. She wanted to marry him and then retrain them. Then when boy heard the list, that was the end of those relationships. And praise God that it happened before marriage, not after wedding. Because in marriage is dictatorship on one side, and then either unhappy marriage or divorce. How would you advise to prepare to those meetings? What would be your advices to couples? How can they make most effective course for themselves? Polina, everything is very simple. This manual is a workbook, but also theoretical manual. Maybe 80% of material comes from questions that cause you to think. Course of premarital counseling, and I tell this to young people all the time, that invites them to make 3 important journeys. 1, inside, to discover what is good made by God inside me to strengthen my marriage, and what is dangerous to marriage. My worldview, my habits, my qualities that are actually destructive to marriage. Second journey is into the partner, into the person I love. And I see where this meeting can be without a mentor, where they need to discover good things that God put into their counterpart, but also they take off the masks to discover faults, worldview, values, habits. And third important journey that happens in premarital counseling, that's a journey into God's dream, God's design, God's intent for the couple. So, the map, the manual is very clear to describe every step, and couple needs to work hard to go through those journeys. I'd like to add that in addition to willingness to learn, they need to be also transparent, open. The more open they are, the more useful the course would be. The more closed they are, the less benefit they get. But for the minister, for pastor, for counselor, I would demand secrecy. Everything he hears in this triangle cannot go out, because this is part of spiritual counseling. And pastor discovers some details from the past, from the present, from the future of each person. Pastors need to learn the privacy, to keep the privacy, either to keep it inside or to give it up to the Lord and forget it, but never share it. In your opinion, this course, what can it not prevent? Well, mistakes will always happen. You cannot prevent all mistakes. Wise people learn from examples of others, the rest on examples of themselves. There are many of us who would like to hurt our own body before we gain some wisdom. Another answer, what this course cannot prevent. If a person is deaf, blind to the voice of God, to the voice of mentor, and stubborn to do their own thing, they will break things no matter what. Self-love and self-determination can break lives, and that starts with disobedience to God. Talking about unbelievers, we have trained some unbelievers. That was my next question. But I'd like to go back to comparison to driver's license and driver's training. Driver's training includes academic learning, but also practice to allow you to get into the car, into the driving system. Have you made mistakes as a driver after the driving course? Yes, for example, speeding. Sometimes I did it intentionally, sometimes I missed the sign. And that traffic rule cost me something, so I learned it very well. That happened to me as well. I already have the driver's license, but due to lack of attention or impulsiveness or breaking rules that you know, but you still break them, you still make mistakes. But does that mean that I should not have learned it all? Of course not. We started with a question, who needs this training? And in the church we have practice for the church members, but also you have done it for non-church people. How did this happen? Some couples came to ask about this course through friends or through church members or through our family club, through a marriage club. They asked and we said, of course, because we want to share God's will about marriage. And so we agree to go through this training with non-church couple that have no understanding of God or very basic notion of God. But sometimes it's very hard for them because there are spiritual realities. There is spiritual life. And I advise this couple to omit things they don't understand at home, but to discuss them in person. And we have some positive experience when a couple went through the whole course and they got married, but that was good introduction to each other to build up marriage, but also introduction to God, because we had to explain that powerful, strong marriage is when husband is connected to the Lord God and wife is connected to Lord God. And when they seek power and love from God, then they draw to each other more than any other husband and wife. So when we build up their families, we have privilege of sharing God with them as well. Mykola gave example when both men and women were not members of church, and they have gone through the training and even wedding. But there are cases when a Christian member of church got in love with a person who is far away from God. We categorically refuse falling in love with person who has worldly understanding of God, of person, of work or entertainment, pornography, anything, everything. If you are within the church, then it's fine. But if a girl falls in love with a boy who has no notion of faith, we allow this couple to get through this training. Why? Because a girl, a Christian, can find out the inner world of her boy, the thing that he wanted to hide, but now she understands his true intentions. But also, we tell him about her worldview of God, whether they are willing to marry after. In some cases, such course allowed this non-church person to come to faith. We refuse wedding to such people, but we allow them training. That's clear, thank you. We have some questions that came in comments. In your opinion, what's most difficult in married life? In my married life, the biggest test, the first biggest test was to get separated from my parents. I am the only son. I did not know biblical teaching about leaving parents. I was mama's son, and I could not leave them emotionally, financially, physically. And things that I should have done before marriage happened only a couple months into the marriage or even more. And that was a difficult time because I did not know and I did not understand. Then it was very hard to build communication with my wife, deeper than just exchanging sounds, but also feelings, emotions, thoughts. I was lazy to dive into the world of my wife, to give her necessary tenderness and care. And these are just two things. There is more, but Pastor Mykola will continue. Every 10 years I have a new challenge. This is a big question for me. In the beginning, I made many mistakes. It was hard for me to understand that I am responsible for everything in the family. Responsible for building up relationships. And I worked hard. I was in the ministry. I was ordained as deacon, as pastor, and I kept doing the church work. But at home I have a wife and 2 children. They must know everything, but not everything they know. They need a husband, they need a father. And it took me years to understand that I'm responsible for my family. My mistake was that I saw my responsibilities to the world and to the church, but I did not see my responsibilities in my home. I was like a tenant, not a landlord, and I'm ashamed to recognize that. Another difficult thing for me in the marriage is when I think too much of myself, that I'm too right, too good. What if it's true? In fact, this presumption of goodness makes you blind to reactions to situations. You're actually not able to accept your wife or husband. Marriage is always improving self, listening more to the other one, to calm down self-pride, and to nurture humility, ask forgiveness, seek reconciliation. It's very hard to humble oneself, but without joint humility, good marriage cannot happen. Good is enemy of the best. When you agree to something that would be better for your marriage, if you register something as good and you deny more change, you make a mistake, because our marriage, our lives are constant transformation. And so we have this problem of laziness. Who do you think is more lazy, men or women, to transform? 8 men, 2 women. Pastor is correct. Men are very lazy when we talk about learning to become better husband, better father. Boys, you need to know this truth. Their mothers explain to them that they are the best, I suspect. And they believe that lie. That's possible. Thank you. Very practical question. What do you do if members of the couple are in different countries? Husband in one country and husband in the other. I had 2 cases like this. That one lady from our church found a husband or fiancé in Germany through Skype, through Zoom. We sent him a book. That was to Germany, but also we had one in America. So we had those online meetings, one watching their own computer. I have this experience myself. He's from Germany, she's from Belarus. That's international marital, pre-marital counseling. Good. If in our church we don't have pre-marital counseling, can we go through the course, just 2 of us? The matter is, I'm learning German. Can we too learn German if none of us know it? We can learn some words. How we read them? Wherever we imagine. How we build the sentences? Well, we imagine. Things will work, but very terribly. You need a mature counselor. This advisor will help you open heart better and respond better, react better. You hear also the wisdom that surpasses the course. So for me, learning just two together is nonsense. You're not in space. Even if you don't have this training in your church, if your pastor refuses and find a mature minister or mature couple that you can trust and go through this course with them. If not in your church, then in your neighboring church. 10, 15 kilometers today is not a distance. But it's important for you as a couple to be accountable to someone. Because when two agree between themselves, they are standard to each other. And they go through the borders without noticing. So, that's not the solution. I will be as categorical as senior pastor. He is senior, so he has a right. But I think if the situation is absolutely without solution, if you cannot find a pastor in your church who is willing to train you, but also if you have mature couples in your church, but they're not willing to dedicate 8-10 sessions to you, going through the book and everything, then these young people need to think through self-training. There are good online courses, video courses, like Biblical Portrait of Marriage by Bruce Wilkinson, and Paul Tripp, What You Expected, Eric Emerson, Love and Respect, Dr. Harley, His Needs, Her Needs, Gary Chapman, 5 Love Languages. So I already started with books, so that could be capital. It's better to read through the whole books than to do these courses, just two of you. If you don't have a mentor, then read those books. Thank you. I will listen to what you say. What's the role of parents in training their children for marriage? Good question. Have you married anyone in your family? I did, and you're almost there. I'll tell you my opinion. The parents have done their work before the children are 16, 18. That's it. Everything they could put in preparation, they have done it before age of 15, maybe 18. After that, they cannot put anything more. More so, sometimes with their assistance they can hurt. They cannot give anything more because they're tapped out as parents. No, because when a young person reaches 15, 18, they reject parents' authority, but also they have taken enough. Parents, you have taught them everything without telling them anything. Your attitude to money, to business, to church, to forgiveness, to communication style, kept training your children. As many couples as I had, 95% of them, when they said, is your parents' marriage example for you? They would say, no, my parents are not a good example. That's sad statistics. There is a great danger when children get married and then parents get excited about the new family to help them as much as possible. The worst thing a loving father or mother can do is start saving when nobody is dying, to give advice when nobody's asking for it. Parents need to understand that they are teaching their children about marriage from birth to 12, maybe 15, maybe 18. That's as much as they can give. And then they can only pray for their children. Then they can support and encourage without imposing, reminding something good and telling their own opinion. But when family is created, getting inside that family, even with good intentions, is godless work. If you look at Ukrainian statistics, reason number 3 for divorce is parents' interference. That's how high interference of parents hurts. Maybe not so much at the church, but still, if you try to direct your married children, that's unacceptable biblically, and that's not acceptable for sound mind. But Ukrainians read the Bible, but their life experience crosses out the Bible. I see that. I've seen fathers and mothers who do not care about the Bible. They want to save their children from mistakes. Children don't want to be saved. They want to hurt their own heads, and they want to learn from their own mistakes. So you need patience. You need to shut your mouth and to pray. Of course, when there is life and death, when there is a risk of danger of abuse in the young family, then interference is justified. But well-created young couple needs to grow and needs to come to you for advice. On the other hand, if I see a couple that I have trained for marriage, and then I see a year or 2 or 3 from that moment, they live better, I understand that it's achievement of their parents, not mine. Let's look at the portrait of ideal boy. I hope that your fiancé has these 3 very important qualities for a boy. He needs to be hardworking, he needs to be kind, and he needs to be faithful. And without doubt, this is a boy that needs to love Christ more than anything. Kind, hardworking, and faithful. When does he learn these qualities? At home. So the role of parents in training their children for marriage is most important. That's their responsibility. Pastors are just coming into their work, are just helping at certain stage, are taking the baton to lead forward. Thank you. What if one of the couple comes from a different church denomination? What kind denomination? That's a big question. Well, we have one case when our girl married a boy from Pentecostal church, and we let her go in peace. We have someone, me, married to a girl from Pentecostal church, but she followed the husband. The order of the Bible is for her to follow the husband. But when the fact that she's from Irpin Bible Church, he can follow her. Friends, for denominational or international or interrace marriages, there is a nuance. You don't plan those things ahead, but in family life, all passive tensions will become active tensions. When one is born in Ukraine and the other one was born in America, I know a couple like that. They've been hurting each other. You are like this because you're from America. You are like this because you're from Ukraine. It took them years to understand we are like that because we are sinners. Language differences, religion differences, and other differences will be creating tensions. You need to understand these extra difficulties. This is not determination you can overcome. More so, a wise counselor and premarital training will allow them to look at theological differences and whether they are primary or secondary, and then they can decide that this is not good for them to build marriage together. Yes, thank you. Another question. Can you see the level of spirituality during pre-marital training. And what if the level is too different? What do you do? How do you define the level of spiritual maturity? More mature, less mature? I see that, of course, but I'm afraid to judge. Say, a person has been in church for a long time or not so long. That's not a measure of spirituality. Someone had more time to learn church orders, someone less time. Love towards God becomes clear, maybe not at first meeting, but during several. And it's often that two people in a couple have different relationships with God. Boys are usually lagging behind girls in getting to know God. Boys are often more lazy. You need wisdom towards both. I often recommended to boys to go through additional spiritual counseling because boys need to become home priests to lead their family. But sometimes when spiritual life is too low, when they have no spiritual initiative, if a girl allowed such a boy into her life, then she needs to understand that that would be her challenge with time. Faithfulness of one slowly impacts the other, but that's not a verdict either. 1 Peter 3:1 says that godliness of a wife will impact any man, but I'll tell you that will take a long time before you reach any results. Is it normal for two immature Christians to get married? It's not normal if they don't grow, if they do nothing to grow. Every Christian goes through different stages of life. And those who looked stable in the past, yesterday, David was very strong, battling Goliath, but he was very weak. Looking at Bathsheba, it's not just a matter of maturity, it is willingness to transform, reading books, going to seminars, inviting mentors into their lives to develop spiritual disciplines that would transform them. A question about family, but not about marriage. What should wife do if a husband has a middle-age crisis? I think that's our next meeting. But briefly, could you say something? There was a question. Do you know what's a midlife crisis? I have some imagination there. Symptoms of such a husband could be very different. What should the wife do? What Christ commanded from the beginning. Respect your husband. The husband, in his middle age crisis, could have a big problem with identification with security, a life mission, challenges in sexual life. So the wife that has extraordinary patience and respect, that finds a way to praise her husband, to excite the passion in him because he stopped dreaming. She is very sensitive to his intimate needs. Wife that intends to build up her husband in any way can help him a lot and pray a lot. I'd recommend ladies in this situation to pray that God would send more mature men into lives of her husband, because iron sharpens iron, the scripture says. Solomon says. A man can improve other men. She cannot sharpen him. Only honor, respect, and accept. But other men could sharpen them, mentors who have gone through this path and who are closer to God. So, your husband needs to have mentor who is more mature. That's why Irpin Bible Church has home Bible study groups. You need to learn throughout your life. There's a quote. A wife is tied by the law until her husband is alive, but when husband dies, she is free to marry. That's from 1 Corinthians 7. Maybe there is additional thought in this question, because it's very simple. Question. If husband dies, if a partner dies, then the other is free to second marriage. Is that the question? Yes. What should the bride do if the groom listens to his mother more than to her? Hard to answer. One of criteria of checking whether a husband or groom or bride and how they would be as husband and wife, that's their respect or disrespect to their own family. If they disrespect their parents or their brother or sister, then they will disrespect you. If they're caring, they will care for you. There is this mental attachment and even dependency. And boys have lack of wisdom to cut this cord, and parents do not make the separation either, and that will hurt future marriage if he does not separate himself from parents. And that's why we have the whole topic that we have discussed many times, and we actually discussed many times in our course, separating from parents. And when she says, "You love your mother more than me," he starts to justify himself, to explain himself. But then when this discussion is happening with the mentor, then he becomes more open. This needs to be overcome. Another comment. We need to stop talking when people still want to listen to us, right? Okay, there are still 3 questions. And then we'll talk about conclusion. Very simple question. Is there English course? Actually, it's translated from English. Good. Then, can someone teach English? Marrying. So, we have pastors who can train this course in English if we have English-speaking couple in our church. If I doubt whether she's the one, what shall I do? Very good question. A brother has thought about a sister, but he's not very peaceful about her. What are criteria markers? I'd like to know what kind of doubts these are. Emotional doubts? Really, he doubts his own feelings towards her, the depth of her feelings and truth. I remember these feelings going up and down when you need to be bold, holding back with sharing your feelings before you are sure of your feelings. Or the doubt is about her maturity, her readiness to follow him. So, what kind of doubts? You doubt yourself or you doubt the girl? It's important to bring someone mature into this story. father and mother, when you share your fears, your feelings with your family. When my Allah has not been mine, she shared with her mother all those fears. When you invite your pastor, spiritual mentors, that would be good. That's what I'd recommend. I agree very much. Another interesting question. Why men after 30 are not looking for wife among ladies after 30. We need to make a statement to all boys after 30. Shoot the arrow into their hearts. Dear boys after 30, if you're not married until now, you need to be either disciplined by the church or reproached by the church. I have suspicion that modern generation of boys are lazy, more lazy than before. Marriage is responsibility. Marriage is care, support, and dedication. At 20 and 25, things are easy. Emotion is the engine, and if it goes fast, then brain just lags behind and tries to justify emotional things. But by 30, the brain suppresses emotion, and any spark is quenched by the reason. So I would really discourage girls from convincing boys to get married. But on the other hand, they're not willing to become celibate for the rest of their lives. So the girls just need to build good circle of fellowship in the church for creation, for fellowship. Just do something useful together. Minister in the church, outside the church, socially. And this work together could decrease this tension. But boys, if you do not want to be celibate, then do not postpone marriage until you're gray. It's not good to become a father when you're old. Some people say that you shouldn't get married until you get all material things you needed. Did you have everything you needed for the marriage? I was a seminary student. I had this scholarship in the seminary, 42 hryvnias for unmarried and 49 for married. So the wife cost 7 hryvnias, as we joked. But actually, many young people believe that they need to have income, place to live, and good business before they get married. But I think no. I think he will work and she will work, and if together they can earn enough for renting an apartment and getting some food, then if they work hard, then they can bring some kind of income together to take care of their family. It's good to be fully financed, but that should not be prerequisite for marriage. Hard work of the boy and her cooperation should be important. They both need to lower societal standards. Society demands a rich wedding, but who said you should have a rich wedding? 10 people could be enough. You could reject the standards of society, or friends impose on you, or other couples tell you and agree to share your life with a faithful person who is willing to accept you as you are. Would you agree? Yes. What books? About financial issues in the family, managing your budget, or maybe the book recommends something. First, the chapter before last is about money. Briefly, but to the point. Biblical principles of managing money, and the practical assignment there is to build up a budget and to maintain it. Also, there is a recommendation, money loves counting. There is course, finances, and family. This is a small group Bible study course. Some other books that you'd recommend. Crown Ministries has many recommended books. Biblical principles of managing finance. What do you think? Is it worth going through medical testing before marriage? Should this be encouraged by the mentor, or should we encourage each other to do that? That's one of the issues. That's one of the issues in the course. The sicknesses of the past and of today. Medical testing. If a person, before they got married, had experience of sexual relations or injection drugs, then that's a must. High-quality medical testing, including AIDS, HIV testing, and hepatitis of different kinds. But also you need to be bold and honest to talk about chronic or hereditary diseases, psychiatric illnesses that could cause difficulties, are also conditions that would cause infertility. You need to be bold to share those. Okay? If couple has different experiences of intimate relationship, or boy and girl have different experiences, what should be done to overcome for everyone who comes to Christ? There was short or long period of wrong experiences, but from that point on, when they became believers, their life is built up from building their lives according to biblical principles. If these two young people get immersed into those biblical, godly principles in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, and they submit the intimate life to these biblical principles, then they reach harmony. I'll add that, unfortunately, children of believing parents have experience sometimes of wrong sexual relationship. I would encourage confession. Nothing secret remains secret, becomes evident. So you need to have power of confession, be open with your mentor, and confess your sin. You cannot live with your sin. In this course, the last chapter is dedicated to intimate relationship, intimate life, and we will recommend some more books like Music Off the Bad Sheets and others that disclose the beauty of God's design, the difficulty of reaching harmony, but also practical steps of how to reach this harmony. Okay, another question that is similar to what you already spoke about. How should one behave if girl? How should a boy behave if girl is not sure you are the one? She needs to bring in the counselor, a lady, gentleman. She needs to explain her doubts. I'd be very serious with every doubt. Doubting inside is fruitless. doubt in face of a mentor. Last question? One more. About, well, you said, if a mentor comes from another church, can we be the neighboring church for them? We convince our young people to convince their pastors to learn from this important tool. In this case, this couple, these young people, can invite their pastor to listen to this broadcast and recording, because recording will remain. Dear pastors, this is your responsibility before God, dear pastors, to build up future marriages. You need to invest. You need to offer them proper training before they get married. You can prepare your own material, or you can use somebody else's material. We can invite our materials, existing 8 lessons, 10 sessions, but one way or the other, it's up to the minister in the church, and it's responsibility of the minister, and God will ask you to report on how many marriages you have built. In our country, even a plumber needs to get training, and marriage is without training. Only children are born without difficulty, or even that maybe conceived without difficulties, but everything else is very hard. So, pastors, this is your responsibility. Last call for the question. If you have something burning, please write. And there is a question that I believe must be announced. What I should do if there is a man who is divorced but devoted. If you like him, should you build up his liking you? First of all, I don't know who are your parents, but I would advise you to talk to your family about it. I don't know the story of divorce of that man. What, why, and how. We recognize that, in our opinion, there are cases where Bible allows for second marriage after divorce and not death of your counterpart, but we cannot just say blankly about that story. You have feelings, pray, wait, and again, I encourage you, allow people into your life who would support you and direct you and advise you. Thank you. No more questions so far. I'm very thankful for this discussion. And if you would like to tell something about the course that we have not shared yet, please, and your advice for young people who are getting ready for a wedding or thinking about one. I believe that the biggest virtue of a boy or girl who dream about marriage intended by God, they need to have this passion in their heart to learn, to change. Don't be lazy. Don't be lazy to read books, to go to seminars, to become part of small group Bible studies, to invite mentors into your life, to learn biblical principles, heavenly principles for earthly life. I'll tell you, friends, that falling in love is like a bonfire that dies very fast. But Christians have this source of eternal fire in their heart. That's relationship with God. If you want to have strong marriage, just like your parents, or maybe stronger, then first you need to see God, you need to love God, you need to dedicate yourself to God, and then as you are dedicated to God and you stay in His Word, in the prayer, He'll prepare you to be the best husband, the best wife. May God help you. Amen. Thank you for this session, and I hope that everyone who've been looking at us subscribed to our channels and liked us to listen to our interesting sessions in the future. Thank you. All the best to you.